And you could think of it like a boat. You're off at shore. Um, you know, you got a motor on the boat, but eventually that motor's gonna run out. However, if you got sails, all you need to do is ride the wind of the current. You just need to put your sails up, and the wind will do all the heavy lifting, all the heavy moving for you. Wholeness and balanced vibrations. Welcome to another episode of the Meditating Nation podcast. I thought it'd be relevant, since it's the Meditating Nation podcast, that we start off with just a quick meditation, just to dial us in, just take some breaths. So if you're tuning in and you're able to, just gently close your eyes, relax your body, let your shoulders drop, let your jaw loosen, let your forehead relax, let your ears, your scalp just loosen softly. And just begin taking some deeper breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose, expanding your belly completely with air, and out through your mouth, releasing all the air in your belly. One more time, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Exhaling any tensions, any stagnancies for the day, just letting them, releasing them, letting them go. And then you can maintain this, or when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. And I guess that puts us in a very relevant space for today's topic, which is surrender. Surrender is an absolute master skill. It's the kind of, I always wondered, like, is there like is there the answer? What's the answer? Even though you get told there's no such thing as the answer, you still look for the answer. And for me, I found that was surrender. And there's varying degrees to understanding what surrender even is. So I guess it's first better off to say what it's not. And this is what I thought it was and how I was applying it. Which was thinking of surrender as just a state of just sitting, doing nothing. Just like, kind of let life take me how it takes me. Let life life in it. But and the you could say quote unquote correct version of surrender is that, but in a different sense. So I thought it was this very passive state where you just kind of sit and stuff will happen. And that's one lesson I got hit in the face with, which is that stuff doesn't happen. You make stuff happen. But that's definitely what surrender isn't. Surrender, why actually is a master skill. And during my journey, and I guess in most journeys, how it usually starts off is that you're putting in this work, you're putting in this effort, you're putting in this pressure, this force to grow and expand. Like you're putting in a lot of effort to push yourself forward, to push yourself in expansion, almost like you're just beasting through these layers of resistance. And then what happens is you come to a point where you just kind of hit a ceiling. Like it just becomes, I wouldn't say too much, it just becomes, you just know that there's more. Like it's got to be simpler than this, because it's like, okay, how much more resistance am I going to be pushing through? Because it does take a lot of effort for this growth, this expansion. And that's kind of when you're ready to flip the switch and go from contraction to relaxation, which is surrender. And at this stage, when you surrender, you expand, which is not what you think originally. When you surrender, when you let go, that's when you actually expand. And that too at an exponential rate. Because when you put in effort, it's kind of linear. You kind of get as much as you put out. Where surrender, you let go to the higher mechanics. You could say like you bring forth bigger forces that are at play. Where it's at the start you and your consciousness contracted in this body making these efforts. When you learn to surrender, you begin to let the other forces, you begin to align with the other forces, the bigger forces, the winds, the elements, the seasons, and they all come and just boost you into your harmony. And you could think of it like a boat. You're off at shore. You got a motor on the boat, but eventually that motor's gonna run out. However, if you got sails, all you need to do is ride the wind of the current. You just need to put your sails up, and the wind will do all the heavy lifting, all the heavy moving for you. And that's what surrender is. And this is where I kind of ended up confusing it with a state of passiveness. But surrender is actually the most active state, because that's when your mind is no longer hindering you. So you're just flowing into actions, because there's a difference between when you do something and it's effort, like your homework at school, half an hour of homework, you're completely brain dead. Do something you enjoy, maybe make some audio tracks. 10 hours on this software or video editing, 10 hours on this software, and you're still buzzing, you can't even go to sleep. That's where surrender takes place. We're able to finally let go of the mind and expand beyond the mind into the truth of who you are, because that can't be conceived by the mind. And really, when you get to this point, this is the only practice that you pretty much commit to. Like, this is a second by second, moment by moment practice. And this is why all the enlightenment teachers talk about surrender, letting go, because it kind of gets repetitive, because it's like, well, you guys are just saying the same thing, but actually they're not, because when you reach the stage of surrendering and you truly surrender, you see, well, first, that it's not what you think it is, because it's beyond thought, and two, that there's actually levels to it. When you stick to it, you realize there's levels, and there's levels of consciousness, which is a model that is quite popular, or that is growing in popularity now for enlightenment, because even with these teachers, they're speaking at different levels of consciousness. But you begin to actually go from a state to where your consciousness feels like it's in this body, even though you know it's a soul, to that your consciousness expanding infinitely, and that's when you experience that oneness as your living day reality. And then it goes even beyond to the end goal, which is the absolute, which I can't really tell you about because it's beyond everything, but I've not experienced it. But it just reminded me of the lovely being Neva Shah, who she's the one who always hammered in surrender, because this is something that needs to be hammered into your brain, because your mind likes to think and do. And this is why the enlightened teachers are so repetitive with their talks, because literally the answer is surrender, but you just need to keep it in it, hitting it, until you slowly untrain your mind, because your mind's trained to focus, to analyze, to contract. When you think about it, all your headaches, all your feelings, it's all contraction from your third eye, from your focus. You're just constantly focusing on things. That's why you get tired, so exhausted so quickly. Flicking through your phone is a very draining activity. So how does this actually play practically in your life? It's as simple as, if you want to get somewhere, you'd rather flow down the stream than swim up it. And that's surrender. And again, it happens in layers. So as a first step, depending on where you are, if you're the step of, for example, you need to get rid of negative thoughts, then your initial step will probably be retraining your brain with affirmations, visualizations, meditation, and positive thinking kind of tactics, such as one called ANTS, which is I forgot what it stands for, but it's like every time a negative thought comes, you stop yourself there and switch it. And that is the effort stage. Like, everyone has to go through that stage where it's effort. Then you're gonna hit a wall to where it's like, I'm just yin and yanging, because you can positive think all you want, but it's just gonna yang back to the opposite pole, because you're just going to one pole. This is where your emotional clearing starts to come in, your integration work. This is where you start looking at the traumas and beliefs you're holding and unrooting those. Because if I just zapped you with surrender now, so for example, the level of surrender I'm at, suppose you were someone who hadn't done any work, and I just put you on that level of surrender, it will be super overwhelming. Like, that could literally cause death. Like, literally. That's why surrender happens in layers. That's why, that's why someone who wins the lottery goes bankrupt. Because it takes a while to trade, because you're climbing in vibration, you're climbing in consciousness, and you need time to integrate. That's why, I always have to put out between my messages that it's fine to feel, and it's fine to be where you're at and accept yourself for this moment, because that's integration. That's when you nail in and make that vibrant vibration your core, so you can move on to the next level. But oftentimes we're just constantly thinking, oh, we haven't reached there yet, When you get to surrender, you realize you're there already. It's just the biggest joke, because you throughout your journey, you just keep hearing it, and it just becomes more and more real. So in that step, that's when your emotional clearing comes in place, because when you surrender, you're in complete non-resistance. And a lot of these traumas and a lot of these feelings and beliefs we're holding act as resistance. They're contractions. They literally feel that there's parts of your bodies that are contracted, holding these traumas, holding these memories, holding these experiences, holding these beliefs. But surrender is complete softness, complete relaxation, complete letting go. And to relax, you have to let go of the energy that's there. So slowly, as you're surrendering, as you do go through this journey, all of this stuff will come out to be reharmonized, recalibrated. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it's funny, because it's easier not because the journey ends. It's because it's like in the gym, like the weights don't get lighter, you just get stronger. And that's kind of like it is. You strengthen your light, so you can dissolve the darker darknesses, which happens as you surrender and let go. Yes, so surrender is anything but the passive state. It's one of the most active states you can be in. You work your way up slowly, starting off with positive thinking. If there's a lot of negative thoughts you need to get up to, that you get, then you can move on to emotional clearing and healing, because now you're able to kind of hold space for yourself, for these things to come up, to be transmuted. And then lastly, that's when you can more or less let go even more and more, and that's when your consciousness expands. Because in the West we only got one word for enlightenment, but in the East, in various older languages, traditions, they've got different names for different stages. So oftentimes enlightenment seems irrelevant and out of our reach, but it's very normal and natural, is our natural state of being. We're already enlightened, but for some reason the mind doesn't think it is, so it's almost like you're training the mind to be enlightened. And all you have to do is just soften up. Like even now you can just, in a meditation, just take some deep breaths, and any contractions you feel in your body, just allow it to soften up. Just come with the intention to soften up, and that is you training your muscle of surrender. That's exactly what happens when you go through your emotional clearing process. You're training yourself to surrender, because it's through surrendering that you actually process these emotions. Otherwise you'll just contract again. That's what I had for today. Thank you for tuning in to the Meditating Nation podcast. Free course on my website, manvyadins.com. Journey into inner exploration. We got 2 free guided meditations on there, how to prepare for your meditation and the true benefits of it, like accelerating your manifestation cycles, doing your emotional clearing, and how to pick and choose the type of meditation you need for the purpose that you want. So wholeness and balanced vibrations. You can find me on Instagram, get in touch, let me know if you have any questions or queries. Feel free to reach out. And stay blissed.